All right, let's see. I was talking to you about a few different things about the bikes. Um, First thing we talked about was the through axle. You see, this hub is a Magura 20 millimeter hub. This is what is known as a through axle, and you can see obviously it's nothing like most of these most of the through axle or most of the axles in general. Most axles are 12 millimeter and they look, like everything else. It's just a standard. You can see that, just a standard axle. Let's see if I can get a little closer. This camera's a piece of shit. Standard axle, the traditional. I'm not going to open it because then the wheel will fall off. But standard axle on both sides. It's got the standard 12 millimeter clamp on. Where the hell is it? Right there. This is a 9-speed cassette with a 34 tooth first gear, which is pretty rare. Usually they're 32. But it gives us a good ratio. I'll get into that a little while in a second. But I wanted to show you the through axle. You can see the configuration is very different. It's got a really heavy duty mechanism here, and it unscrews. So it's actually bonded. It's actually bonded to this side of the fork. See it? It unscrews right from the entire thing. So let's see if I can get you a better shot of this. So as you unscrew it, it pulls out like so. Let me just... Sorry you can't see that as I do it, but... So you can see that this side is threaded in the fork. This side isn't. Let's see. I'll go to macro mode here. That's all magnesium. What the hell is it? And this is the threaded side. So this piece goes right in and then screws in to the other side and bonds. When the wheel's in, these two fork legs clamp into one another, and you can see there's like a little ridge right there, right on the inside. That ridge bites on to the wheel, to this hub, and what happens is it squashes the two fork legs. Onto the hub, and that's where the rigidity comes from, and that's really what you don't get from the other type. It's not so much as the axle is big for the reason of bending it. It's more to keep the front end really, really stable and locked together. So you don't have any flex in the fork legs, because these fork stanchions, I can't remember what they are. I want to say 30 millimeter or 32 millimeter. These are titanium nitrate coated forks. And this particular one, this is the Pike 454 dual air. So on this one, you have the positive air goes in on the top. There's a Schrader valve up here. See if I can get a little closer. Positive air goes in over here. That's how much resistance works against the compression. So the more air you put in here, the more resistance you get from the compression. Underneath, you have a negative air pressure right here, and this works opposite. So this, between the two, the balance you can get between the two determines how the bike responds, how quickly the rebound works, and everything else. Now on the other leg, you have adjustable compression. This is the compression setting. This is really designed to be on or off. And then there's a gate control that, as far as I know, RockShox's one of the few that have it. The gate control configures the threshold before the fork starts to go into its compression stroke, so you can adjust that. On the bottom of the same leg, you have a rebound knob right there. Let's see if I can get that better. This rebound knob adjusts how quickly the fork rebounds from the compression stroke, and it's fully adjustable. So these are a dual air configuration. They made the Pikes in a lot of different versions, but this one has no spring in it. The one I had prior to this did, and these are super ridiculously light. This particular frame has a very tall neck, and of course the steering stem on the fork ends up being a lot longer, but you can see that there's no spacer underneath here. I used to have it, but I don't have it anymore. In fact, actually, I left one spacer on the top, so this steering stem is down all the way on top of the headset bearings right here. I can't remember all the specs, but these are Sete bars, carbon fiber, and they're the heavy. I can't remember the size of them, but they're the larger diameter bar. Juicy Sevens. Let's see if I can get a little. Juicy Sevens. Adjustable throw of the lever. I put hockey tape on mine. I rather have that. You can see the same thing, other side. The reservoir is right in here, right in the actual brake caliper itself. Let's see, what else can I show you? Oh yeah, my shifting mechanism and drivetrain. You notice that I don't have any shift controls on this side anymore. I only have it on this side, and this is all SRAM stuff. Hope this is going to be okay. See if I can dim this down a little bit. What a hunk of crap. Okay, anyway, so if you look, let's go on the other side here. I'm in the middle of 50 projects, so I got shit everywhere. But if you go over here, I was pointing this out before. This is an EXO carbon derailleur. It's designed for this is what would be a long throw carriage. You need the long throw because of I actually could switch this now, but before, when I had the big chain ring, I needed to have this longer piece. I don't really need that anymore. I could go with the smaller cage on the rear. And anyway, it's a 9-speed cassette, all SRAM drivetrain, SRAM chain. And you can see in the front now I got rid of the other chain ring, so I only have the the middle chain ring. I think it's a 32. Yeah. 104 tooth 32. So you can see if I can zoom in on this. You can see that I have two bash guides that sandwich this. And this completely not only eliminates chain throw, which of course you'd expect, but the best attribute to this is that when you smash into something now, not that I was really worried about the chain ring itself, but what the attribute says is this acts as a low friction ski. And now when I hit logs, instead of the bike stopping, it glides right over it like glass. And this is just a sandwich of two bash guards that are sandwiched together on top of that. And they're designed to work as outside ones, but I put one on the inside and one on the outside. And I don't know, it's pretty sweet. The only reason why I did this is because I have a 32, I have a 9-speed cassette and I have a 34 tooth rear cog over here. And that gave me the extra ratio. To be honest with you, I could get the ratio nearly exact what it used to be if I switched this to a 10-speed cassette instead of a 9. But of course that would mean your shifters and, these shifters would have to change as well. Anyway, I'm really happy with it. It's really simple, and that's what I like about it. I didn't lose much more than 3 cogs off the rear when you compare the ratio of what it used to be. And it's a totally different world now. I like it. It's much more solid. I could beat the piss out of it. It doesn't matter what I hit for bumps. It never throws a chain anymore. It's good stuff. So regarding the brakes, these are 8-inch rotors. Juicy Sevens. Hold on. Juicy Sevens. with a 8-inch rotor, which is a 203 millimeter. I don't know what else to show you. This is where the rear front derailleur used to go. I just took it off. Pedals are Crank Brothers, which I love these much more than the old SPD pedals. These things are the bomb. Never have a problem with these fucking things. Nice, very, really heavy duty. Beat the piss out of them, and they last. You can see this is a single pivot bike, and you can see how high the pivot is compared to the cranks. And the higher the crank, the higher the pivot is on a single pivot bike, the smoother the overall operation, and you don't end up with a lot of problems with chain tensioning and other issues with ratio changes or rising rate suspension stuff. Let's see here. The shock is not the best. It works great, but it would probably work much better on a 4-bar type of suspension system. It just doesn't have, I can't speed the rebound up any more than it's already up. It's up as far as it can go as far as the rebound speed, and what it's doing is it's packing up, which means that if I hit stutter bumps really quickly, the stutter bumps end up making the bike pack, which means that the shock's rebound doesn't rebound the rear wheel quick enough to catch the next bump. It's still in its compression stroke, and that causes the bike to really be rough over really studded bumps. What I should have did was try to keep the Pearl, but I was in between all kinds of problems with RockShox trying to supply me with a replacement Pearl, so I ended up buying this one, and instead I gave when it came in, I gave it to Nikki, and this is the Pearl. This shock rocks. It's actually slightly smaller in diameter, but oh man, the performance is friggin' amazing. Anyway, that's the one. They haven't made that in a very long time. This is Nikki's bike. It's a Specialized women's specific stump jumper. It's got same thing, Juicy 7s, but it has 6-inch rotors instead of 8s with a standard. You can see the standard. What do you call it? Standard axle, the 12 millimeter. I think does this thing have a light on it? Ah, what a piece of crap. So much for that. It has a light somewhere, but I can't seem to find where the damn switch is for it. Alright, anyway, so it's got a standard 12 millimeter axle. These are SPD pedals. Not quite like the Crank Brothers. The SPDs are more of a traditional one. The problem that I have with them is you have to adjust them for tensioning on the shoes with Allen screws in there. But the worst part about it is when they get muddy, they pack up bad, and you can't get them clean, and you can't either get out or you can't get into them. And this is a typical 4-bar suspension system with linkage. It's a nice bike, though. Very nice. Okay. So anyway, what else? Yeah, so I don't know. The fork is great. The rear suspension is just as important. The dampening on this fork is one of those. This is one of those forks that is just one of the best kept secrets, because it wasn't their top of the line. It's always been one down from the top of the line when it first came out. The Pike fork is one of those secrets that just, if you've ever owned one, it's just an incredible fork, and I'd buy more of them if I could. I used to have the 454 spring version of this, and I gave it to my brother to put on his bike, not Steve, Mike. And the suspension is so supple on that bike, and it has a spring, so it weighs more. But anyway, it's good stuff. So and the other thing too is some of these had travel control on them. The spring version, instead of having an air Schrader valve for air, it has a travel control that brings it between 100 and 140 millimeters, which, of course, if you start screwing around with that, you change the angles, and it totally changes the performance of the bike. This bike was designed to be a 5-inch travel bike, so if you do any less, you end up with or the different handling characteristics. Changes the head angle and everything. And the head angle on this bike's pretty steep. I think it's 70 degrees as opposed to 68, which most of them are like. So this bike is super, super nimble. But if the suspension isn't tuned right, it's on downhill, rough downhills, it could be a handful. But I found a great balance, and I think the biggest thing about this bike really is the way that it climbs. It's like a mountain goat. It's amazing how great it climbs. And it's very controllable, very predictable in climbs, unlike a lot of the other bikes that I've had. In fact, there's one of the Rocket bikes I was telling you about. Unfortunately, it still is okay, but that's that little shock. It's a little Fox 2-inch or something, 3-inch shock. The bearings are all friggin' shot. But the equipment on it's all Shimano, Dior. It's a decent frame. This is one of the bikes that has Hayes suspension. Too bad I have things piled on top of one another, but anyway, this is a mechanical disc, a 6-inch mechanical disc, and it's all Hayes. It's got some weird stuff though, like this steering neck is kind of strange. It's not a standard thing. It's more proprietary. It doesn't use a standard headset. It uses insert bearings. This fork is a I think it's a Marzocchi comp fork. It's junk. It has adjustable preload. That's all. No dampening, no oil in it. It's resistance only, friction only. But the brakes actually work halfway decent. These are mechanical Hayes on this one. My brother had Hayes, the next model up, and believe me, these work better than his did. So, and it used to have SBD pedals. We put plastic ones on because this is more or less a guest bike. So anyway, that's it for the bikes, I guess. I'll show you one more time. You can see the through axle on this thing is huge. It's 20 millimeter. It's a trade name. RockShox calls it a Maxel, and I believe they make now a 15 millimeter as well. And this hub is a Magura, and I bought it specifically because I knew that we were going to use this fork with it, with the through axle like this. So the wheels and everything, I got the beefiest wheels I could get without being ridiculously heavy. And these are Nevigals. And they're Magura. Yeah, Magura. I thought I had Mavics. Oh, that's Nikki's that have Mavics. These are Magura. These are double walled as well. These rims are double walled. They have an inner and an outer layer. And they can take a major beating. These are free ride wheels, so they're designed to really take a serious beating. The bike, even with all these heavy duty parts on it, the bike still weighs 29 pounds or slightly under. Aluminum seat post. This is the biggest one they make. This frame is beefy, so it's got some beefy parts on it. I can't remember it. I want to say 29.8 millimeter or something. It's one of the bigger seat posts around. But anyway, that's that. I think I showed you everything I can show you. Oh, your radio. This is your base station, which your VHF extender system. So I just trying to make it self-contained. So you can see everything's labeled. That's the radio and the power supply, microphone. And this is the one for the truck. And I have another extender repeater up on the shelf over here. It's up there somewhere. This is all low band equipment for USESA, all linking UHF equipment, low band portables. This is the main link repeater that's going in East Providence. That's going to be responsible for linking all the systems together. Some more Motorola shit for USESA. And I'm working on a couple of Simplexer repeaters right now with a bunch of other shit. So anyway, I think that's good. That's a 20-minute video. I can't seem to do videos under that. All right. Hopefully this shed some light on the bike thing, and hopefully re-inspired you about the radios. All right.